We talked about Kouri Richins. Now let's dive into some of the evidence against her for her husband's murder, as well as the new accusations regarding her possible witness tampering. Everyone, and welcome back to my channel and Killer Concepts, the place where we talk about all things true crime. If you are new here, my name is Peyton. If you watched my video from 2 weeks ago, then you will probably know that we went over the case of Kouri Richins, who was accused of poisoning her husband, Eric Richins. During that video, we discussed the incident that took place, as well as the suspicious timeline of events leading up to and after Eric Richins' death. When I filmed that video, I planned to do this story as a series, and so here we are again. Today we are going to discuss two things. We are going to discuss some of the evidence against Kouri Richins, as well as the new accusation against her for possible witness tampering. The witness tampering accusation actually came out about 2 weeks ago. It happened about the time my other video about her released, but if you have not heard about it, we are going to talk about it today. If you have not heard about the Richins case in general and did not watch my previous video on it, I suggest you go back and watch my first video before continuing on with this one. I will link that video here and down below. Now that I got all of that out of the way, let's get started. Before we get into a little bit of the evidence in the case, we are first going to talk about the witness tampering accusation, as it is fairly recent. To keep it short, during a recent search of Richins' jail cell, a 6-page handwritten letter was found. Allegedly, the letter contained instructions for Kouri Richins' brother to corroborate a false narrative that would suggest Eric Richins, the husband of Kouri is accused of poisoning, had went to Mexico to buy pain pills and fentanyl. This storyline, if used by defense, would essentially suggest that Eric Richins was the one who bought the fentanyl that led to his death. Now that this letter has been found, Kouri Richins is trying to say that the letter was part of a mystery fictional book that she has been writing, in which her and her father go to Mexico to find drugs. Richins' defense is trying to say that the letter was obtained in a potentially illegal search, as it was found in an envelope labeled Sky Lazaro, attorney privilege. Sky Lazaro is Richins' attorney right now, but prosecutors are rejecting this claim and saying it was found in an LSAT prep book. If you do not know what an LSAT prep book is, it is a law study book for a law test to become a lawyer. Her attorneys are also saying that entering the letter into court record is violating a gag order on the case because it is influencing public opinion and could possibly taint the jury pool. So, according to a memorandum filed by Richins' attorneys, Richins defended the letter in a phone call to her mother stating, quote, "When I first got in here, I was telling you I was writing a book. Those letters were not a paper to you guys. They were a freaking part of my book." End quote. If you want to know about more of what exactly was in the letter, some of the sources in the description box go into more depth. I just wanted to bring up the witness tampering accusation, as I thought it was very interesting that Richins in general would think it would be a good idea to keep anything in her jail cell that could make her look like she was doing something wrong at all. I mean, she is in jail because she is accused of poisoning her husband with fentanyl. So you just don't think it would be the best idea to write a fictional book, if that's what she's doing, that's loosely based on her life right now. I don't think she does anything to make herself look better. I think she only makes herself look worse, and she can explain it away however she wants, and her attorneys can try and explain it away, but I just don't think it's doing anything good for her. I think she just needs to stop. Now, let's talk about some of the evidence. So in my previous video, I know that I had said that the judge did not allow Richins parole, I believe it was in June, due to substantial evidence against her. So I would like to take a little bit of time and just talk about some of it. We're gonna get more into it later because there was also emails, and I want to talk about the arrest affidavit. Today we are just going to talk about the testimony of a woman they're calling CL and her search history. We will start by talking about the phone searches. So Richins made a lot of very suspicious suspicious phone searches on her iPhone that investigators had found. Among these would be the following. What is the lethal dose of fentanyl? Death certificate says pending. Will life insurance still pay? If police can see your deleted messages or not? Can cops force you to take a lie detector test? Can cause of death be changed on a death certificate? And luxury prisons for the rich in America. One of her defense attorneys, Clayton Sims, just tried to explain this by saying she was just researching her case, her husband's case, trying to understand how evidence is processed. But even if this is the case, as I said about the story she was writing, Richins' search history definitely does nothing to make her look any better. In fact, I would say it makes her look worse. Some of the things she searches just do not seem like something an innocent woman would be searching at all, or a grieving widow and mother. Beside the phone searches, I really want to talk about a special character whose testimony seems to be becoming a huge part of this case that prosecutors seem to be really relying on. And that would be a 51-year-old woman named Carmen Marie Lauber, who investigators are referring to as CL. This is also how I will refer to her from here on out. According to court documents and several articles, CL was identified as being a housekeeper who was frequently used by Kouri Richins for her real estate business. When Summit County Sheriff's detectives started looking into Richins' text history, they saw that there was several text messages between Kouri and CL during the time frame of March 1st, 2022 and March 15th, 2022. Because of these texts, investigators decided to dive deeper into the background of CL and would find out that she had a past record dealing and abusing illicit drugs. This is when they would begin to think that it was possible CL was the one who could be responsible for supplying Richins with the fentanyl that would kill her 39-year-old husband, Eric Richins. According to KSL.com, a source that can be found below, a search warrant affidavit stated the following, quote, Lauber admitted to supplying Kouri Richins with 15 to 30 fentanyl pills on 2 separate occasions, approximately 1 month before Eric's death. She stated Kouri paid her approximately $900 each time she supplied the pills. She provided details of the solicitation of the drugs, the pickup and drop-off locations, and other pertinent details that have been corroborated with digital forensic evidence, end quote, according to a search warrant affidavit. Now, while I think that Richins has done a lot of very suspicious things, and this only adds to it, I also want you to be cautious when taking CL's testimony completely to heart. When watching the court TV footage of the Kouri Richins detention hearing, where they discussed detective details, I had an instance where I began to doubt some of the testimony. I'm a person that if there is any doubt, I think it needs to be brought to life. Before I bring this up, I do want to say that I am not defending Richins. I just want to point out that I noticed that a lot of articles aren't mentioning these things that happened in court. So without CL's testimony, there is nothing linking the $900 payments to the purchase of fentanyl. In fact, the payments were made from Kouri Richins' business account, which her attorney brings up. When she brings it up to the detective, he says he doesn't want to speculate, but he basically says, I guess, to it possibly being a payment for something else besides the fentanyl if CL is not telling the truth. So the detective J. O'Driscoll also says that they did not find any actual text between CL and Richins where Richins was requesting drugs. To add to this, during Richins' attorney questioning the detective, she basically gets him to admit that they convinced CL to give them more and more information slowly. I am only going to go over a few short quotes from this hearing, but if you go to the link in my description box below, you can find this section of questioning between 35 and 52 minutes. I am going to try my best to get all of these quotes right. Where I would like to start is Richins' attorney, Sky Lazaro, asks, you said you didn't make any promises to CL. Is that correct? The detective responds, quote, "No specific promises," end quote. Lazaro then gets into details with Detective O'Driscoll regarding the search warrant the investigators got for CL's home, where CL would end up being arrested and drugs being recovered at her home along with a firearm, which would all be a violation of a drug court program CL was currently a part of. After this arrest is when investigators would begin questioning CL, but first they would explain to her how bad her current predicament was, per the court questioning. Lazaro, well, you told her that she was on probation to drug court for 4 direct felonies, correct? O'Driscoll, correct. Lazaro, a violation of that is potential prison sentence, correct? O'Driscoll, it would depend on the prosecutor, but that is potentially true. Lazaro, a first-degree felony carries a possible penalty of life in prison, correct? O'Driscoll, I don't know. I would have to reference the code. Lazaro, so you told her she was facing problems with that, correct? O'Driscoll, correct. Lazaro, that this would be a violation, so she was on the hook for 4 first-degree felonies. O'Driscoll, potentially yes. Lazaro, and you also told her that having the firearm could potentially be a new crime, correct? O'Driscoll, correct. Lazaro, you also told her that the U.S. Attorney's Office was essentially on board with screening drug distribution charges, correct? I am happy to play it if you don't remember. O'Driscoll, I don't remember specifically. So then Lazaro gets O'Driscoll to agree that the detectives did make CL aware that she was facing multiple first-degree felonies and also facing potential federal charges. But the next part is really what gets me, though. Richins' attorney is very good. I'm just going to say that. And she gets O'Driscoll to basically say that they use specific tactics such as making deals to try and get people to say more. The next is another series of quotes. Lazaro, and during that initial interview, she tells you that she didn't buy fentanyl, correct? O'Driscoll, I don't know if she made that specific statement, but she talked about not knowing anything about fentanyl. Lazaro, okay, and that interview lasted about an hour and 19 minutes to an hour and 20 minutes, correct? O'Driscoll, correct. Lazaro, and that interview ends with you telling her, well, several times you tell her to think through all of this and let you know if she wants to help, correct? O'Driscoll, yes. I gave her the opportunity to tell us up front whether she was willing to cooperate or if we should just not bother interviewing her anymore. Lazaro, but this is after you essentially tell her that she has a potential of doing a considerable amount of state and federal prison time, potentially. O'Driscoll, yes, this is a common tactic in law enforcement to be able to leverage charges for information. Lazaro, okay, in fact, you did in this case leverage charges for information because you told her you didn't care about first-degree felonies or federal charges. What you cared about was information about Kouri getting drugs, correct? O'Driscoll, I told her that I was interested in the information that she may know about this case. Lazaro begins telling O'Driscoll that he told CL that Eric died of a fentanyl overdose, which he agrees to. So he brings up the fact that Eric died of a fentanyl overdose to CL, who is the testimony that the prosecutors are really relying on. And that he basically alluded to the fact to CL that Kouri is the one who killed him by supplying him with fentanyl. The detective responds by basically saying he didn't say it in those words. He just told her that they needed CL to provide them with specific information so that they could help, or anything that she has related to CL's death. But what I think is the most interesting is when they originally started the questioning with CL, she originally tried to say she knew nothing about fentanyl, which happens sometimes. You know, she could have decided that she didn't want to get in trouble, so she thought she would just try and admit it altogether. So to keep it short, Lazaro basically just keeps bringing up that CL wasn't giving the cops the information that they wanted, but they kept leveraging charges against her, and they kept feeding her more and more information to try and get what they wanted to hear. But what surprised me the most was when Detective O'Driscoll states the following in court. report. Quote, but none of the information that we got from CL was perfectly chronological. We had to piece it together over multiple interviews to come to the conclusion that we came to, end quote. Lazaro responds with, quote, because you told her you needed something more specific to ensure that Kouri gets convicted, right? O'Driscoll, quote, no, we told her that we needed more details on what she was talking about and specific dates and times. So Lazaro continues on with the questioning more and more, and the detective basically admits later on that CL didn't remember much of anything at all, or any of the timeline or the locations or any of that she needed to know. That's in her testimony. They helped her figure out which house was the original house she said that was the drop-off location for the pills, which ended up changing because this house no longer belonged to Richins at the time anyway, because it had been sold a month prior. The detective says that CL really didn't remember too much, but kept remembering more as digital evidence was being shown to her. So here are the two most stunning statements to me. I know I may have said that previously, but here are the two worst ones. It just blows my mind. Lazaro, quote, so she just agreed with your scenario of events, correct? O'Driscoll, quote, no. In fact, several times during our interview, she told us that as we presented her more information, it helped her remember more. I cannot tell you, and I try and keep my opinion out of these videos. I really do, to the best of my ability, because I don't want it to be about my opinion. I want it to be about the facts. But nothing made me madder than when I heard that. Not because, like I said, not because I think Richins is innocent, but because I think these are the kind of things that can disrupt a murderer being convicted, because this puts reasonable doubt in the mind of a jury, and it gives me doubt. How accurate is CL's account if they were feeding her information and basically telling her which version of the story that they wanted to hear? Because when it's something like that, when you're giving somebody information and they don't remember it on their own, how accurate could it be? Her story changed several times. It's unbelievable to me, and this is stuff that law enforcement does all the time. And it's never been a tactic that I've really agreed with. I know sometimes they leverage charges, that's okay. But when you leverage charges and you start feeding somebody information after you basically scared them and told them that they could do life in prison because they potentially have federal charges against them, they're probably going to be willing to say almost anything that you want to hear. Okay, so those are the two evidence pieces that I wanted to talk about today, which was her search history, which is absolutely bananas, and CL's testimony, which to me is not concrete. I don't think it's concrete enough because of the stuff that the detective admitted to on the stand. And it blows me away. It really does. Next time we talk about Richins, because we are going to talk about her again, I want to talk about emails that she sent back and forth with detectives. They're crazy. And that's what I mean. It's not that I don't think Richins did it, but I do want to point out the stuff that happened in that court hearing that other news articles aren't pointing out. They're not bringing any light to any of it, but I want to bring it to you. With that being said, that is all I have for you today. If you have not done so already, please hit that red subscribe button down below and turn on your post notifications so that you do not miss any future videos. If you have any case suggestions, please send them to killerconceptsvlog@gmail.com, and follow me on social, which you can find all of them in my description box down below. Before you go, just remember that the world's most dangerous minds hide in the most unlikely places. Stay safe.